Krishna, Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Oh my goodness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Wow, Govinda. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Oh man, I just thinking how a pure devotee, an actual pure devotee, they see everyone as serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna more than themselves. They see everyone serving Krishna more than themselves. And I was thinking about the prayers of Lord Brahma after he had his realization and his breakthrough into becoming conscious of how unlimited Krishna really is. Seeing all the Vishnu forms expanding out from him and then coming back in, and then Krishna standing there like a little cowherd boy, and all this is happening on the transcendental plane. His prayer was that he wasn't even praying to go to Vrindavan. That he just, if he would be in ecstasy, if he just could be a blade of grass just outside Vrindavan, and when the residents of Vrindavan came out to walk, if they ever did, they might step on him. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So that, when you put that together with that a pure devotee sees everyone as serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna, they don't even see themselves as serving Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then when you look at it, that Krishna, his pleasure is in when his parts and parcels, his expansions, his devotees are pleased and happy, and he's happy in relationship to him. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That makes him happy to see them happy in a relationship. Looking at it, to see by looking at the things around us, sometimes we can understand the transcendental plane. And my father and mother, they were together their whole life, right up to the end, in their 90s. They were like one person together. It was a tough act to follow. But my father used to say, he'd say, a loving relationship isn't 50-50. And that's in the 10th canto, in the Krishna book, when the gopis ask Krishna about the different types of intimate relationships, loving relationships. And Krishna says the 50-50 one, that's not love at all. That's a business relationship. He explains that. And that was, my father understood that. He said, a marriage, loving relationship, is not 50-50. He said, it's 100. And that's what Krishna, he goes on to describe two other types of loving relationships. One is when the partner will give anyway, even if it's not reciprocated. And an example would be like a parents with their child. They love the child anyway, even though the child doesn't reciprocate very nicely, they still give their love. And then he describes a third type of intimate loving relationship where the person doesn't really reciprocate because they're self-satisfied. But they're not ungrateful. They appreciate, but they're already self-satisfied. So Krishna says that's the best kind. And we see that also, like I was just reading, somebody they put these little sayings up that if I'm not happy with me, if I'm not right with me, how can I be right for somebody else? So that means self-satisfied, not needy and depending. That's not healthy. It would be self-satisfied. And then relationships like that, Krishna says, those are the best kind. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna. So you just wait on Krishna. Krishna makes the arrangements. Krishna's in everyone's heart. And he knows, what's that Santa Claus song? Been good or bad, been naughty or nice, he's you better be good. He knows what you've been doing, he knows. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So, going to read a little bit of Krishna book. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rakshama. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. So, Krishna. This is chapter 33. Summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Rasa Leela dance has just taken place, and there's a couple demons that are going to get killed here before we go back to the gopis. So this is Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men. So at one point, Vaishnavas don't usually worship Lord Shiva because they worship the master of Lord Shiva, Vishnu or Krishna. But they accept Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava. So at one point, the cowherd men, they wanted to go to the temple of Lord Shiva and engage in worship of the greatest Vaishnava, Vishnu. So they went to the holy place and they performed the usual ceremonies. They gave cows to the Brahmins there. And they took a bath in the sacred river there. They worshiped the deities like this. They fasted. So the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, spent that night on the bank of the Saraswati. They fasted all day and drank a little water at night. But while they were taking their rest, a great serpent from the nearby forest appeared before them and hungrily began to swallow up Nanda Maharaj. Nanda began to cry helplessly. "My dear son, Krishna, please come and save me from this danger. The serpent is swallowing me up." When Nanda Maharaj cried for help, all the cowherd men got up and saw what was happening. They immediately took up burning logs and began to beat the snake to kill it. But in spite of being beaten with burning logs, the serpent was not about to give up swallowing Nanda Maharaj. At that time, Krishna appeared on the scene and touched the serpent with his lotus feet. Hare Krishna. It doesn't say if Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, was in this traveling party, but it does say he showed up. He appeared on the scene. It doesn't say he was traveling with them. So Krishna appeared on the scene and touched the serpent with his lotus feet. Immediately upon being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, the serpent shed its reptilian body and appeared as a very beautiful demigod named Vidyādhara. His bodily features were so beautiful that he appeared to be worshipable. There was a luster and effulgence emanating from his body, and he was garlanded with a gold necklace. He offered obeisances to Lord Krishna and stood before him with great humility. Krishna then asked the demigod, "You appear to be a very nice demigod, to be favored by the goddess of fortune. How is it that you performed such abominable activities, and how did you get the body of a serpent?" The demigod then began to narrate the story of his previous life. "My dear Lord," he said, "in my previous life I was named Vidyādhara and was known all over the world for my beauty. Because I was celebrated personally, I used to travel all over in my airplane. While traveling, I saw a great sage named Angira, and he was very ugly. Because I was very proud of my beauty, I laughed at him. Due to this sinful action, I was condemned by the great sage to assume the form of a serpent." One should note here that before being favored by Krishna, a person is always under the modes of material nature, however elevated he may be. Vidyādhara was a materially elevated demigod, and he was very beautiful. He also held a great material position and was able to travel all over by airplane. Yet, he was condemned to become a serpent in his next life. Any materially elevated person can be condemned to an abominable species of life if he's not careful. It is a misconception that after reaching the human body, one is never degraded. Vidyādhara himself states that even though he was a demigod, he was condemned to become a serpent. But because he was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he immediately came to Krishna consciousness. He admitted, however, that in his previous life he was actually sinful. A Krishna conscious person knows that he is always the servant of Krishna. He is most insignificant, and whatever good he does is by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master. The demigod Vidyādhara continued to speak to Sri Krishna. Because I was very proud of the exquisite beauty of my body, he said, I derided the ugly features of the great sage Angira. He cursed me for my sin, and I became a snake. Now I consider that this curse by the sage was not at all a curse. It was a great benediction for me. Had he not cursed me, I would not have assumed the body of a serpent and would not have been kicked by your lotus feet, and thus freed from all material contamination. In material existence, 4 things are very valuable: to be born in a decent family, to be very rich, to be very learned, and to be very beautiful. These are considered to be material assets. Unfortunately, without Krishna consciousness, these material assets sometimes become sources of sin and degradation. Despite Vidyādhara's being a demigod and having a beautiful body, he was condemned to the body of a snake due to pride. A snake is considered to be the most cruel and envious living entity, but those who are human beings and are envious of others are considered to be even more vicious than snakes. The snake can be subdued or controlled by charming mantras and herbs, but a person who is envious cannot be controlled by anyone. My dear Lord, Vidyādhara continued, now, since I think I have become freed from all kinds of sinful activities, I am asking your permission to return to my abode, the heavenly planet. This request indicates that persons who are attached to fruitive activities, being desiring promotion to the comforts of higher planetary systems, cannot attain their ultimate goal of life without the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the less intelligent want to achieve material benefits and therefore worship different kinds of demigods, but they actually get the benediction from the demigods through the permission of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Demigods have no power to bestow material profit. Even if one is attached to material benediction, he can worship Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ask him. Krishna is completely able to give even material benediction. There is a difference, however, in asking material benediction from the demigods and from Krishna. Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material benediction. But when he actually achieved the favor of the Supreme Lord and saw him, he was so satisfied that he refused to accept any material benediction. The intelligent person does not ask favors from or worship the demigods. He directly becomes Krishna conscious, and if he has any desire for material benefit, he asks Krishna, not the demigods. Vidyādhara, awaiting permission of Krishna to return to the heavenly planet, said, now, because I am touched by your lotus feet, I am relieved from all kinds of material pangs. You are the most powerful of all mystics. You are the original, Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the master of all the devotees. You are the provider of the planetary systems, and therefore I am asking your permission. You may accept me as fully surrendered unto you. I know very well that persons who are constantly engaged in chanting your holy name attain release from all sinful reactions, and certainly persons who are fortunate enough to be personally touched by your lotus feet are freed. Therefore, I am sure that I am now relieved from the curse of the Brahman simply by being touched by your lotus feet. In this way, Vidyādhara got permission from Lord Krishna to return to his home in the higher planetary system. After receiving this honor, he began to circumambulate the Lord, and after offering his respectful obeisances unto him, he returned to his heavenly planet. Thus, Nanda Maharaj also became relieved from the imminent danger of being devoured by the snake. The cowherd men who had come to execute the ritualistic function of worshipping Lord Shiva and Ambika finished their business and prepared to return to Vrindavan. While returning, they recalled the wonderful activities of Krishna. By relating the incident of Vidyādhara's deliverance, they became more attached to Krishna. They had come to worship Lord Shiva and Ambika, but they became more and more attached to Krishna. Similarly, the gopis also worshipped goddess Katyayani to become more and more attached to Krishna. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that persons who are attached to worshipping demigods like Lord Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and Chandra for some personal benefit are less intelligent and have forgotten the real purpose of life. But the cowherd men, inhabitants of Vrindavan, were no ordinary men. Whatever they did for Krishna. If one worships demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to become more attached to Krishna, that is approved. But if one goes to the demigods for some personal benefit, that is condemned. After this incident, on a very pleasant night, both Krishna and his elder brother Balaram, who are inconceivably powerful, went into the forest of Vrindavan. They were accompanied by the damsels of Rajabhumi, and they began to enjoy each other's company. The young damsels of Raj were very nicely dressed and anointed with pulp and sandalwood and decorated with flowers. The moon was shining in the sky, surrounded by glittering stars, and the breeze was blowing, bearing the aroma of Malika flower. And the bumblebees were mad after the aroma. Taking advantage of the pleasing atmosphere, both Krishna and Balaram began to sing very melodiously. The damsels became so absorbed in their rhythmical song that they almost forgot themselves. Their hair loosened, their dresses slackened, and the garlands began to fall to the ground. At that time, while they were so much absorbed, almost in madness, a demon associate of Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, appeared on the scene. The demon's name was Śaṅkhāsura, because on his head there was a valuable jewel resembling a conch shell. Just as the two sons of Kuvera were puffed up over their wealth and opulence, and did not care for Narada Muni's presence. Wow, Krishna, wow, intense twitching of the left eye. That's a sign of something or other. That's amazing. Wow. Hare Krishna. It's a portent of something. At that time, while they were so much absorbed, almost in madness, a demon associate of Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, appeared on the scene. The demon's name was Śaṅkhāsura, because on his head there was a valuable jewel resembling a conch shell. Just as the two sons of Kuvera were puffed up over their wealth and opulence, and did not care for Narada Muni's presence, this Śaṅkhāsura was also puffed up over material opulence. He thought that Krishna and Balaram were two ordinary cowherd boys enjoying the company of many beautiful girls. Generally, in the material world, a person with riches thinks that all beautiful women should be enjoyed by him. Śaṅkhāsura also thought that since he belonged to the rich community of Kuvera, he, not Krishna and Balaram, should enjoy the company of so many beautiful girls. He therefore decided to take charge of them. He appeared before Krishna and Balaram and the damsels of Raj and began to lead the girls away to the north. He commanded them as if they were his proprietor, as if he were their proprietor and husband, despite the presence of Krishna and Balaram. Being forcibly taken away by Śaṅkhāsura, the damsels of Raj began to call the names of Krishna and Balaram for protection. The two boys immediately began to follow them, taking up big logs in their hands. Don't be afraid, they called to the gopis. We are coming at once to chastise this demon. Very quickly they reached Śaṅkhāsura. Thinking the brothers too powerful, Śaṅkhāsura left the company of the gopis and ran for fear of his life. But Krishna would not let him go. He entrusted the gopis to the care of Balaram and followed Śaṅkhāsura wherever he fled. Krishna wanted to take the valuable jewel, resembling a conch shell, from the head of the demon. After following a very short distance, Krishna caught him, struck his head with his fist, and killed him. He then took the valuable jewel and returned. In the presence of all the damsels of Vraja, he presented the valuable jewel to his elder brother, Balaram. Hare Krishna, don't be afraid. We are coming at once to chastise the demon. Don't be afraid. We're coming at once to chastise the demon. Hare Krishna. Don't be afraid. We're coming at once to chastise the demon. Hare Krishna. Yo-ho, Hari Bo.